In this video series, I'm going to show you how you can use WordPress to run your autoresponder system. The plugin we're going to use allows you to have one mailing list only, and that's going to be fine for a lot of people that just want to have one mailing list and one newsletter. They're only promoting one product or they have a blog or something like that. If you want more mailing lists, there's a small fee that you pay, and then you can have unlimited mailing lists. And you get a couple other features too. However, the base of this plugin will let you do everything you need to do to run a single mailing list. It also has something in there that prevents you from breaking the terms of service with shared hosting. Shared hosting will only allow you to send so many emails per hour, and there's a throttling mechanism within this plugin to keep you from going over that. So it's a really good solution if you don't want to be paying a monthly fee to one of the big guys and you just want to run your own mailing list. All right, so since we're going to be running it on WordPress, the first thing we're going to need to do is install WordPress. And we're going to do that in the next video. In this video, we're going to go over installing WordPress. If you know how to install WordPress already, you can just skip this video because that's all we're going to do in here. Also, if you already have a WordPress site set up, you can run this autoresponder from within that WordPress install without affecting that install. In other words, you can use what's produced by this plugin on any other website. It doesn't have to be in the WordPress site that you're using. Okay, so having said that, let's get started with the install. So first go to wordpress.org, and then you want to click on download WordPress, and then you want to download the most recent version here in zip format, and we'll save that. Okay, so here's the file we downloaded. So let's right click on this, and then you want to extract all if you're in Windows, or you can use a third party if you want. I use 7-zip. It's a free one you can download if you want. I just use this because it's faster, but use what you like. So let's go extract files and click OK. And it's going to extract them into a WordPress folder here. Okay, so while it's doing this, let's go over to our hosting account and set up our database. Okay, so I'm showing you this in cPanel because that's what I use, but whatever hosting system you use, you'll be able to find your database section and set up a database. So I'm going to use this database wizard here, and it does it all in one step for us. Okay, so we just give this database a name. I'm just going to call it AR for autoresponder. Next. Okay, here you need to set up a user and password for the database so that it can access it. So I'm going to give it the same name, and then I'm going to use the password generator to make a strong password. So we'll just copy this because we're going to need this later. Click I've copied it to a safe place and use password. Now at this point you should open up a notepad session to save this password because we are going to need it later. Okay, so I'll just paste that in there, and that's the password we're going to need, and we'll create the user. Okay, at this point we need to give it all privileges. Click next step. Okay, and then it tells us it's created. So we're just going to copy this whole line here because it has the name of our database and of our username. They happen to be the same in my case, but it's just easier to copy this line and then you have everything together. So we'll put it here above this. Now while we're in our cPanel here, we need our database host name. So let's go get that. We'll click here. Now back to the databases section here, and we want to go to phpMyAdmin and get our host name for our databases. Okay, and you'll see up at the top here it says server localhost. So you need to take note of what it says here. Write it down if it is something besides localhost because localhost is the default. But if it isn't, then write that down on your notepad. Now at this point we have everything we need. Our files are unzipped. We have our database and we have our host name. Now what we need to do is just upload the files to our server somewhere. Okay, so I'm using a program called FileZilla. FileZilla is a free program you can download and it allows you to upload your files via FTP or File Transfer Protocol. So what you have here is on the left side you navigate to the folder where you want to upload your files from. On the right side, this is where you connect to your server and this is where you're going to upload to. So to do that, you can just put in your host name, which is your domain name, the username and password for your hosting account. You can also use the site manager and then you can add your domains in there and then it makes it easier to connect to them. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is we need to go to where the files are, which is into this directory here where you see all of these things. On the right side, I'm just going to create a new directory for my WordPress install. And I'm just going to call it AR for Autoresponder. Doesn't matter what you call it. And again, if you're installing it on an existing WordPress install, then none of this is necessary. All right, so let's just going to come over here and select all of these and then right click and upload. Okay, so we'll just wait for that to upload and then we'll run the install. Okay, so at this point we have everything uploaded and you should just look down here and make sure you didn't have any failed transfers. So everything has transferred up there. Now what we need to do is go to the URL to this install. So let's go to the web browser. Okay, so once you've put in the URL and hit enter, you'll come to this page. So you select your language. Next is just telling you that you need your database name, database username, database password, or database host. So we've already got all of those and table prefix that we're going to choose. So let's click let's go. Okay, and then we just substitute our values in here. So we copy this down. We have the username here and the database over here. So it doesn't matter which one we picked in this case because I made them both the same. But if you didn't, then you're going to need to make sure you got those straight. Okay, so database and username, I made the same. Password. Now remember I told you that if your database host name wasn't localhost, that you should put it in your notepad so you can copy it in here. That's because localhost is a default. So that's right in my case. And then you have the table prefix here. And this is so you can install multiple WordPress installs in one database. So if you're limited in databases in your hosting package, this is how you can do it. I'm just going to change this from standard here. I'm just going to call it AR for autoresponder. But it really doesn't matter what you call it. So let's submit. It's going to check to make sure we got that right. And then we run the install. Okay, the next thing comes up is our site title. I'm just going to call it test AR. If you're just going to use this as an autoresponder, then you can do whatever you want here. It's not anything that anybody's going to really see. However, if you're going to use it as your blog, then you need to be a little more careful with this. Okay, then our username. I'm just going to use admin because I'm lazy here. You should never use admin because it's the first thing that people use when they try and break into your account. They use admin and then they try for passwords. Okay, and then you can key in your own password or use the strong password that it put in there for you. And then if you use a weak password, you got to click on this box here. You put it in your email address and whether you want the search engines to come to this site. If you're using this only as an autoresponder, you're going to want to check this here so that the search engines don't index your site. Okay, so fill that out and click install WordPress. Okay, at this point we're all installed. So we'll just log in here. And we now have our base WordPress installed. All right, in the next video, we're going to be installing the plugins we need and just getting our WordPress site set up a little bit. Okay, so I'm setting up a WordPress install only to run our autoresponder. So I'm going to have to put a few things in here and just do a bit of minimal setup. Now, if you've already got your blog set up, the only thing you're going to have to worry about is setting up the autoresponder plugin. Okay, so what I want to do though is I want to come into settings here and I'm going to want to go down to permalinks and then I'm just going to want to use post name here. Let's save that. We should also go to reading and we should just configure a page that people will land on if they happen to get to this site. Now, I'm not even going to bother setting one up. We're just going to pick the sample page here. So let's get to a WordPress sample page and I'll go, nothing interesting here. Okay, so save the changes. All right, so let's just go look at what people will see if they land on this site we're just using as an autoresponder. This is all they're going to see. Really nothing to see here. They're just going to move on. Think, oh, it's just a sample blog or something, if they happen to stumble upon it. Okay, so let's just go back into the dashboard. The next thing we want to do is go to plugins, and then we're going to want to go add new. Okay, now let's go over to search and type in autoresponder. And the one you want here is Arigato Autoresponder and Newsletter. So let's click install now. And we're going to activate. Now, Arigato will also work with Contact Form 7 if you have Contact Form 7 on your website so that people can get in contact with you. So I'm just going to put Contact Form 7 on this install just so I can show you how it works. But you don't need to do that if you're just setting up for an autoresponder on this particular blog. So I'm going to go to Add New, and I'm going to install Contact Form 7. Go Popular and Contact Form 7. So I'm just going to install that. All right, so now what we want to do is set up our autoresponder settings. So I see down here we have Arigato Lite, and then we have settings, mailing list, import or export. So if you already have contacts, you can bring them in. We have email messages, send newsletter, a raw email log, then help, and this Ninja form, which doesn't work. And I'll try it again, but it doesn't seem to work when I was testing it. Okay, so we're just going to go into the main settings, and this is where we start to set things up. Now remember, we only have one mailing list available with this free version. You'll see on the right side it says Go Pro and it tells you all the other stuff you get. So if you only have one mailing list, you don't need to bother with that. And that's what we're assuming here. Okay, now you're going to put in here your name and your email address so that it looks like it's coming from you. And you do it in this format that they show you down here. So your name and then a space and then email at domain.com within these less than and greater than signs. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, so I put listed min and then I put an email address in there. Now, after they fill in the registration form, you may want to send them somewhere else. So if you do, this is where you're going to send them. Now remember, since we only have the one mailing list, we're only going to have the one web form, and we're only going to have one place we can direct them to. So you can put anything you want in here, whether it's a thank you page or right off to an affiliate product. I'll just put in the Google for now, just so you can see where that it redirects properly. Okay, whether you're going to have double or single opt-in, let's leave it as single. Okay, and then we have notify me when someone subscribes or activates, notify me when someone unsubscribes. I wouldn't suggest that you check those. And then this next one here, if you have your blog set up so that you're going to allow people to sign into it, register and sign in, then this is a handy option here. You can have them automatically subscribe to your newsletter. And if you tick that, after they do their first login, it's going to subscribe them automatically so they don't have to fill out a web form. Down here, you can decide whether you want to set up a cron job or you let WP Auto Cron do it for you. Basically, what that's going to do is trigger the autoresponder system. And I would suggest that you just leave it as it is unless you know about cron jobs. So basically, as soon as somebody visits your website the first time in a day, it will start the processes going, including the scheduler. So this works just fine if you leave it like that. Now, this next one was what I was telling you about. If you have shared hosting, you're only allowed to send so many emails at once. So I'm just going to put 250 here. You have to look up your hosting provider if you're using shared hosting and find out what that is. Now, as it says here, it doesn't limit the number of sign-up emails or instant newsletters, and we'll get to that in a minute. Okay, so let's just save settings. Okay, now down here you have your form. Okay, so let's just copy this out of here. So select it all and copy. Now I'm just going to copy this into Notepad here. I'll just use this one I had here. And then I'm just going to paste it in here. Okay, so this is all that we have for the form. Username, email, register. All right, so I'm just going to save this as an HTML, and then I'll show you what it looks like. So save as. Okay, so I save it as test.html. So I'm going to open test.html now. And this is your form. Okay, so you got your name, email, and way over here you have register. So you're not likely going to want to put it on your site like that. You're going to want to fancy it up a bit. All right, so in the next video, we're going to work on this form a little bit, and then I'm going to show you how to integrate it into your sites. Okay, in this video, we are going to set up the form a little better. We're going to integrate into our site. Before we do that, let's just look at a couple other things here. Let's go to email messages, and you want to just set up the email messages that you want to have in your autoresponder. So you have your subject and your message, and then down here when it's going to go out. Okay, so let's just set up a couple here so that we can test. Okay, so we'll just put down here, thank you for subscribing. And then this is the tag for the name, as you see up here. So you can use it in the subject line and within the emails. Then you put your message down here. You can add media to this using WordPress as a media manager. You can also do full HTML if you hit text here. And when you're in the visual, you can click on that and bring up the whole suite of tools that you can use within the WordPress editor. So just put whatever message you want in here. Okay, so I have name, download your GIF below. And then you would just fill out the rest as you like. Okay, so you have a choice here of either sending it so many days after registration, or you can send it on a certain date. So we are going to be sending the first one 0 days after. So that'll send it immediately, whether we want it in HTML format or plain text. We want it in HTML. And then you can get an attachment here from your computer if you want to attach something. Okay, so let's add the message. Okay, and it's now added the message into our saved messages. which you'll see down here below. Here we are. So these are existing messages. And then you just keep up like that. You just put your whole autoresponder series in here. Now let's just talk about this other one here. You can send it on a certain date. Now remember that earlier I showed you that the settings for so many emails being sent out during an immediate newsletter won't get throttled. And if you're using shared hosting, that's going to be a bit of a problem. But you can overcome this by creating a message in here and then just setting the date for the day you're on, or maybe the next day might be better. Okay, and then when somebody comes to your site on that day, it'll send out this message to everybody. Okay, so that's the way around that. Okay, so now we've got our autoresponder messages set up for our mailing list. And then the next thing here is send newsletter. I just want to just show you this quickly. This is what they were talking about in immediate newsletter. Now, if you have under about 500 subscribers or not very many, you could just go ahead and use this and not have to worry about the throttling. If you get more than that though, and you haven't opted for the pro version, then you should use the method I just showed you. But this is basically the same thing. You put in your subject, your content here, and then you just send the newsletter. So very simple. Okay, so at this point, this whole thing is set up. Now let's go over fixing our form a little bit. There's some ways you can fix up your form that are quite easy. You can do a search on Google for a free web form template. You can look around here until you find one you like and just pop your code into it. Another thing you can do is use a web editor like Composer or whatever you like to use to set up your web form. And I'm going to give you a template that you can use. So I've included this template for you, and if you open it with your web editor, you can change it here. So what you want to do is, of course, change the text here, and then take your own form code and go into source here, and then you want to change the form code that we have in here, which comes right after all of this. So right after subscribe to our newsletter, you'll see form, and then you'll roll down until you see script. So all of that comes out, and you just put your own form code right in there that you get from your site. And then once you've done that, you just save this. And then what you do is you're going to just copy the code into your website. Okay, so what we want to do is open this sales page here that I'm going to put this on, and I'll open it in the same editor. Do File, Open File. Okay, so what I'm going to do, let's go back to this one, go into Source. Okay, and then I'm going to grab all this stuff here, right down to there, copy it. Then we're going to this one, go into Source. Okay, and then we want to go down to where we see, okay, this is the body tag, so the head is right here. Okay, so we're going to put it right above that. Now, let's go to our site and decide where we want that form. I'm going to put the form right here. So what we do is well, let's go get the code first. So back to the code I gave you, source. Now, what we're going to do is take everything after the body tag. So right there, and everything before the body tag right there. Copy. And we're going to go back to the site we want to implement this on. Now, right here, let's click center. Okay, now we're going to do insert HTML, paste, and insert. Okay, so there we are. Our web form is in here. Now let's go test this out. We already have this integrated now. All we need to do is put our name and email in there, and we should be directed to Google, and our information should be in our mailing list. So let's go and have a look. So let's bring this up in our web browser. Okay, let's put in our name, put an email address in here. Now, when we hit register, this should take us off to Google. So let's do that. Get subscribed, and it took us right to Google. Okay, so you can see now that we have the whole thing integrated. Now, let's go have a look in our autoresponder, and let's go to mailing list. Okay, so here's that record in our mailing list. You can edit the subscriber over here, delete them. So if you're going to edit, okay, and then you see the information here. So you can change this in here if you like. And then delete it, of course, does just that. Okay, and then if we looked in our raw email log, we would see it there. Let's go check out our email. And we should have, and there it is, listed min. Thank you for subscribing, and picked up the first name. Down in your gift below, and then our unsubscribe link is right there. Okay, so as you can see, everything worked, and they would just proceed through the autoresponder sequence. Now, just one thing I failed to mention earlier is that when you're in general settings, so settings general, you need to make sure that you set your time zone so that your emails sync properly. So you just come down to where it says time zone and pick your closest city, or use the GMT plus or minus times. Okay, so at the end of the day, you should see UTC time here, and then you see your local time here. This is important that you do this, or your emails might not get sent out. But this does cause one problem. Let me just show you here. Let's first go to our mailing list, and we see that this person is active and that they've been sent one email. But if we look in the raw email log, and this is on the 20th, if we look in the raw email log, it's taken us to the 21st because it's using GMT time. So you need to remember when you come in here to select the proper day in your time. And that's why I have this here, because I sent one first and it didn't work. And that was because the time zone wasn't set properly. So that's why I have two in here. All right, so just make sure you do that. Now, the last thing I want to go over is contact form 7. Remember, let's just go back into settings here. And then you see underneath the code, you see integrate in contact form 7. You can also use Ninja form, and that doesn't work in the free version. If I click on this, it just goes to a dead page. Okay, so let's contact form 7. And you have here a checkbox that will be checked by default if you click this, but you don't want to do that. You want to have them doing it because that's the new email rules. Okay, so really all you have to do is put this short code in, and you can change the description on it, but into your contact form 7. So let's go to settings, and let's go to contact and contact forms, and then let's edit this one. Okay, and then what we want to do is just before submit here, so let's paste that in here and save. Okay, so that is how we integrate our mailing list with contact form 7. So now if we were to preview this, okay, so this is the short code that you would use to put it on your site. So let's just put this on a page and have a look at it. So I'm going to copy it and I'll just go to the page here and we'll edit it. And I'm just going to drop it in there. I'll just drop that shortcode right here. Let's update. I could have just previewed here too, but we'll just update it. So if somebody does come to your site, you can always get them to opt in by putting a form on there if they should happen to stumble upon it. Okay, so here we are. Subscribe to our mailing list and send. Okay, so if they click on this, when they send the message, they're going to get subscribed. All right, now you have everything set up for a single mailing list. However, if you want more mailing lists, all you have to do is go get the Pro version here. It's very reasonably priced, and then you can have as many mailing lists as you like.